Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Idle and Blessed podcast. As you probably know by now, inspired by the poem called The Summer Day, which I guess the punchline of the poem, or the big provocative question, is, do we need to reconsider what makes for a productive life well lived? And I'm going to pass over to my friend Courtney to introduce our guest for today.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be back. And today we are with Melissa Yamaguchi, who is a wonderful person who focuses on energy and story and how we use our energy and our time. And there's a lot more to it than that. She's an expert in the Chinese Zodiac and Feng Shui and has just quite a colorful fabric of a story of her life. And so I'd just love to have her tell us more about what she's focusing on now and how she's doing her work now, and just really get us into the beginning of understanding like how you got into what you do and your origin story behind that, and just your story in general. Just tell us a little bit more about you.
Thank you both for having me. I'm really delighted to be here. I love the name of your podcast. I love the genesis of what you're doing. I think it's so vital. It's so important. We are inundated with negativity. It's so great to have positive vibrations out there. So thank you. So my story, it's a loaded question there. Okay. So I stumbled into, quite organically, the study of energy. The actual study of it. I've been living a life of energy as long as I can remember. As a wee child, I shared this with you, Courtney, so you're going to be bored hearing it again. But as a wee child, I was visiting my great-grandmother, as all my cousins and I were wont to do. She was an incredibly wonderful, wonderful woman, over 6 feet tall, and for a Cherokee Indian, and very intuitive, and quite adept at making, I think, every single thing that I can imagine would be in a home by hand. And she, outside of technology, and she would make homemade crackers and everything. The bread was homemade. The garden was a huge victory garden where my cousins and I would pick things for her to make food with. And I remember one particular time, and I was 2 or 3, small, and I was saying to my grandmother, Mrs. Coe's coming. And Mrs. Coe was a neighbor. And leading to my great-grandparents' home was a long, windy road with gravel and dirt. And if someone were coming, you could literally see dust kicking up down the road. And my cousins rushed to the window, and there was no dust. And they said, she's lying, she's not coming. To which my great-grandmother said, no. If Melissa said Miss Coe's coming, then she's coming. And everyone starts setting the table. So we all start setting the table, and we start cutting the crust off the bread, and we start getting everything ready for the little sandwiches and the sweet tea for Mrs. Coe. And lo and behold, Mrs. Coe showed up. So my great-grandmother, was born on the 9th of March, and her name was Nina March. And my great-grandma, Nina, took me to the side and said, don't forget, this gift you have, it's your intuition, it's a gift from the heavens. If you ignore it, it'll fade away. If you nourish it, it'll stay with you. So I took that into consideration, into heart, and I believed it. And I would tell my parents when things were going to be happening my whole life. I remember one time in particular playing on an Etch-a-Sketch in the front seat of my mom's car, and I looked up and I couldn't see over the dashboard. I said, there's a wreck ahead. And so and it was raining, and she said, okay. So she pulled over, and we took a different route, and there indeed was a major wreck ahead. And this is, obviously before. I mean, I was dialing in on an Etch-a-Sketch. I didn't even have a phone at that point. So this has been a part of me, and I've always just kind of assumed, like, oh yeah, that's a thing. And if someone said, oh, this is what you do, I kind of thought, well, that's what we all can do, because I was told that we all have this capability. It's just that some of us deny it, or we considered it woo-woo, or whatever, which is woo-woo is a terminology that was used to keep the feminine energy down during a time when that was, their intuition and their ability to forecast was seen as a threat to a lot of patriarchy. So I was always told that this is a part of who we all are, and I believe that. Now, how I came today to be involved in Feng Shui which as a girl raised in Oklahoma in the South, Feng Shui is not a term that just rolls off your tongue very easily. I don't even think I said it properly for the first couple of months when I was learning about it. But I used to teach English, and I moved out to California, abandoned teaching because I was so dismayed with the administrative control over education that I came out to California to visit my mom, and she said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I think I want to go back to college and become an architect." So I began studying. In the meantime, on the side job, I'm working with my new boyfriend, soon to be husband, on some projects that he and I were working on together. And I'm back studying architecture. And I started with the study by Frank Lloyd Wright because I loved his blend of nature and building. So I was studying Frank Lloyd Wright, and I came across these words, Feng Shui, and I had no idea what they were. So I began looking it up. And I thought, well, this sounds a lot like the understanding of the energy of the land that I was raised with my grandparents and great-grandparents who'd been farming. My great-grandparents were Sooners. They drove the stake in the land and claiming land, and they weren't given any grief by anybody in the area because my great-grandmother was part Cherokee. And so I grew up with the precious value of land and the energy that's emanating from the earth. I was raised with that. So when I started studying Feng Shui, I thought, well, this makes perfect sense. I studied the I Ching. I studied the interpretation by the German philosopher who did such a good job. The Chinese educators started teaching his view. I began studying it so heavily, and I was so excited. I was levitating, talking to my now husband, Billy, about it, all this information. And I said, the only way that this can be this natural for me, the culture was so antithetical to what I'd been raised. I'd been raised in a very matriarchal family where the women were really, really leading the charge. And it was so antithetical to what I was raised at that I told Billy, the only way that this is coming to me so organically and so easily, because I'm meant to teach it. So I abandoned my thought of becoming an architect, and I dove in full throttle to this concept of Feng Shui and this understanding of what it is to work fastidiously, daily, continuously, minute by minute, to balance yourself with your environment. And understanding also, by way of studying the book of Chinese medicine and the balance of the energy around you, along with the balance of your body, mind, thought, and spirits, the study of epigenetics and the study of your environment have to be at the foremost of everything we do. So much so that whatever the issue is, some people will hire me to come to their homes in hopes that I can repair a damaged marriage. And if I'm going to be able to move a couch 2 feet to the left, and all of a sudden they're going to fall back in love. And so I've realized, it's so much deeper than I'd like it noted for the record that two picked up a cup to drink at the exact same time. Anyway,
we're very aligned. We're very aligned.
We're going to get into that in a minute because I studied both of your energy. So, yeah. The concept that we can stick lipstick on the face, make the house Architecture Digest worthy, go to therapy and check that off the list, and not do the daily, minute by minute, consistent work on betterment is a joke. So my work, I was hired by corporations to work originally to feng shui their space, to make the office look pleasing to the consumer when he or she would walk in. And, I did, but then I would have the HR department calling me saying, hey, can you come feng shui our offices? Because we get calls all day long of complaints. And I said, well, hold up. This is deeper than where I'm putting your phone to answer the complaint. Let's figure this out. So I started shifting and morphing my study of feng shui to really bring it in and hone it into the individual. So I know that this is the original house. And if this is not in balance, then the rest is for naught. So that's when I began to work on the shift of it. And I now am hired. I work one-on-one with people Not as much, but as I used to. I used to do a lot of corporate, like I said, Feng Shui, not as much as I used to. I'm working more and more with getting my message out. I do a lot of public speaking. I've traveled all over the world speaking. And that's probably where I find my greatest vibration, because I'm able to put the message out there and hit a bunch of ears at once. One-on-one is very specialized. It can be very taxing. So I have to monitor myself that I have an earthing chair that, as you know, got the copper connection, and after I'm on, there used to be an app where we would get on, and Courtney, you know about this, Clubhouse.
Yes.
Get on. There originally were audiences of, I don't know, thousands.
A lot. Yeah.
Clubhouse.
That energy was interesting,
put some
right?
super glue on something that wasn't even broken and shoved it down to where you had this small audience, which was fine.
Yeah.
But I would get out those massive audience classes and put myself into the earthing chair, and lights out. I was just comped because I was just expelling, and people were texting like crazy, and thank God there were moderators, because they were asking questions. And I don't look at technology when I'm doing a class. I'm not looking at my phone. I don't even do PowerPoint. I've had people say, well, this is really a stretch for me.
Your name on the screen.
I don't do any of it, because I just would rather talk to you and get the message out with, my makeshift sign language. So that's kind of where we are now. What I do, I'm in the throes of writing a book. I don't want to have my feet held to the fire, because God only knows when it'll be finished. I have imposter syndrome, I'm sure, because I'm constantly worrying that it sounds right enough, and I beat myself up with my background in English, making sure that there's no dangling participles and everything's right. I've got that, but I'm working on a myriad of things, and I'm excited about what you guys are doing. And you were gracious enough to send me some stuff, and I listened to it, and I really like the rhythm of what you're doing and what you're accomplishing. So I'm happy to be here. Whew. And I'll take a drink now.
Perfect. Yeah, I met Melissa in that big online environment, and I was very draining for me too, to be in that space. I could only be there so much. And then I've been very, very lucky to work with Melissa one-on-one for about 5 years now, I think.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it's been that long, but, and I have benefited a great deal from meeting with her once a year and having her look at my year and understand how I can move through my life with more intention every month. Like, look at this, focus on that. Don't pay attention to this. That's going to distract you. It's extremely helpful grounding and anchoring for me, and has, I would say, dramatically changed the way I approach my work, my family, my relationships, because it's layered together with the other things that I do and study. Has been such a nice complement to, because I'm looking at people through a different lens, but I need some of that nurturing myself, and I'm very, very bad at giving it to myself. But I've been very, very religious about my adherence to my meeting with Melissa every year, because it really does root what I need to be doing and answers so many questions, and just really I think, Melissa, tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but I remember one of your phrases was control your energy, control your life.
Yeah.
Or maybe
own your energy. If you own it.
Own your energy. That's right.
Yeah, I have there's an author, and I don't want anybody coming after me, because, if you don't like something that the public loves, and all of a sudden you're a pariah. But there's a John Bradshaw mentality that a lot of your issues may stem from the way your parents raised you. And I understand that. I really do. I understand where there can be some challenges with your environment growing up, if you grew up in an abusive household or so forth. However, I am really of the cut of cloth that at some point you have to be able to look at that and say, all right, well, that sucked, and that was painful, and that was hideous. But I don't want to stay in that pattern, because if we don't address it at some point, then you are prone to repeat. And then I've always told my children that your job is to evolve. Don't stay stuck where your father and I are. You don't need to vote, pray, love, plant gardens the way we do. Evolve. And our forefathers who fought woolly mammoths to get here did not put forth all that effort to survive so that we could move forward for you to stay stuck. So evolve. And I think what happens is we give people permission. We coddle, because there's a lot of money in coddling.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money here.
Very true.
I think that if we teach people, this isn't about tough love, it's about empowerment. And it's about, if I own my life, I own it. It's my life. Nobody's jumping into that coffin with me, no matter how much they profess to love me or be my bestie. No one's going to die for me, so no one should live for me. And I've talked to my children, you need to own your energy so you can own your life. And by owning energy, what I mean is not the Popeye version of I am what I am, but these are the cards that I've been dealt. This is my Enneagram number. This is my Western astrology information, my markers. Here's my Chinese information, my Chinese astrology information. All right, so that gives me an indicator of who I am. All right. What of this do I love? What serves me? What's hindering me? All right, I'll nurture this for a moment, and then let me address these issues. I'll use myself as an example. I am the day of the tiger. And what that means is full of a lot of piss and vinegar. I've got the ability to scrap up if needed, slash throats if I'm tempted, and then be over it in 5 seconds. And while that works beautifully if we're surviving in the jungle, it doesn't work day to day in areas which call for my diplomacy. It's a wonder I have anything more than a sliver of a tongue. I've had to chew my tongue more than once in meetings. Don't react, Melissa. Temper yourself. And as I've gotten older, I realized that a lot of that scrappiness served me when I was younger. I have an older brother who was born deaf. And my mother insisted that he be able to go to public school. And he was the first deaf student in the state of Oklahoma to attend public school. And with that came a lot of amazing things, but with that also came a lot of misunderstanding and ignorance, not understanding why he spoke differently, why he sounded differently. So he was made fun of behind his back, and I would get into fights. And I don't mean verbal. I mean, I was in there. So as I got older, I realized, well, obviously that ghost behavior is not going to be allowed to carry forth. And not only that, the arthritis in my thumb from my right hand is a constant reminder of that behavior. I had to start changing. That energy no longer served me. I don't know how much it served me before, but it certainly didn't serve me as I became a mother and as I became older. That feistiness, that get up and go that I have, if you call me and say, Melissa, my house is on fire, I'm the road runner. I'm there in 2 seconds before you can even open up your door with the bucket. Let's go. So that serves me and those I love. But the fiery anger, that quick to punch, does not serve me. It doesn't serve my heart. It doesn't serve anything. So I've had to work on that, to remove a few of the tiger stripes, as it were, so that I could calm it down, so that it would boost and serve the rest of me. I own my energy. I own my failures. I own my glories, and I figure out a way to work it so that it can propel me. I don't want to stay stuck. I don't want to. Well, yeah, I am what I am. You got to understand my most annoying phrase I hear. You need to understand. No, I don't need to understand anything. You need to explain yourself and modify and self-regulate. Otherwise, we'd all be urinating on the ground in front of us instead of finding a latrine. Yeah. Moderate, regulate, control. Own your energy. Then you can own your life and you can navigate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So many things I could say to what you just said.
Oh, yeah.
So many things I could say to what you just said. But, a big part of what, there are two things I wanted to pull from that. One was, in my work or our work, I think we are constantly reminded that emotional intelligence is relatively rare in terms of innate intelligence. However, I think people are missing the idea that you can learn it, you can grow it, you can expand it, you can own it, you can hold it and practice it. And so I think what you're doing is so helpful to that process too, like giving people that sovereignty around not just misbehavior, but like all of the layers, saying like, this is who you are, but that doesn't mean that's where you're stuck,
Right.
and you don't have to transform into something you're not to be more palatable to other people. You just need to learn how to be healthy as who you are.
Yes.
Healthy in
Yeah.
yourself, healthy as the person that you were born to be, and expansive in that profile, but not transforming into what others want you to be necessarily or becoming less. Like, I think people mistake those things, especially with the onslaught of social media in the last couple of decades. Like, the shiny image on platform X, I don't mean the actual platform X, I just mean any platform,
Yeah.
is the marker of success or the marker of happiness or the marker of that they're doing well, and they're forgetting about all the inner work that goes with like actually doing well
Right.
and not trying to just sort of blend in and become what everything else is asking you to be. So I feel like that's so powerful. But also, could you explain, I mean, I know it well, obviously, because I've had the blessing of working with you so much and becoming friends with you. So I'm very gifted, with that. But can you explain for our listeners and even for David, like, how does the process work when you're working
Okay.
with somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I gather is your full birth date, and what I'll explain why that's important. When the earth is emanating energy at all times, and it's moving in undecipherable waves constantly around us, and we are hit with it or we are carried by it. And so when you're hit by it, it's like a stubbed toe, and you're thinking, well, I don't even know. I mean, I just spilled coffee all over my white jeans. The dog made a mess on the floor. The whole day has gone wrong. You are hitting, you are moving horizontally against vertical energy all day, and you can't figure out why. So, roughly 3,500 to 4,000 years ago, give or take, the emperor of China really wanted to get a stronger hold on his exportation. They were exporting rice, and he wanted to get a stronger hold on it. And he brought forth all of his geniuses and asked them, his male geniuses at the time, by way, back to the original comment about culture, the male geniuses at that time, and asked them, tell me why, when we lay the crops east to west, we garner a more favorable crop than when it's north to south. Because he wanted to expand the land and do more farming. And they had no idea. They had no idea. It wasn't about the sun. They couldn't figure out why this was happening. And then in some areas, north to south was fine. They couldn't figure out what it was. So they pulled the mathematicians and the geologists and the geomancers and the astrologists and every scientist or mathematician, everybody in the STEM department across China that he could think of, his most brilliant. And he brought them forward and said, study this. And he locked them away in his palace. And they began this very arduous task of documenting behaviors and the soil and the wind and the weather. And it was much like the Farmer's Almanac, but a little bit deeper into human behavior. And they really studied this for 12 years, documenting tomes and tomes of books and documentation. On year 13, they recognized the wild similarities to year one. Year 14 was like year two. And so they realized there was a 12-year pattern. All of their findings were deduced to these algebraic equations that only they could understand and interpret and guide the emperor from. And the emperor was becoming wealthier. More horses were being brought to the palace, more wives were being carted in, and the people down below began to take notice. And at the time, there was a caste system, if you will, and people were designated by vocation with a colored vest. So farmers had a yellow vest, police officers would have a blue vest, and so forth. Well, the people began gathering and realizing there's more horses and there's more wives being taken up to the emperor, and we can't feed our children. We're down here starving. The people were very uneducated on purpose. Uneducated are very easy to lead by the nose. So they were kept uneducated, but they knew enough to know that they were hungry. And they said, well, he's got more horses and he has more wives and there's more jewels being brought in and we can't feed our children. So they staged a rebellion. And so that they would be able to see one another and identify one another in the melee, they took the yellow vest and they wrapped them around their head, the turbans, and it became known as the Yellow Turban Brigade. And they stormed the palace. And the experts, the geniuses, as it were, saw what was happening, and they grabbed as many books as they could, and they fled to the mountains for survival. They realized they were going to have to get this information to the people on some level so that they could quell the anger and that everybody could thrive and not just the emperor. But they knew that the people weren't educated enough to understand what the hell they'd written. So they said, okay, let's take year one. How do these are the characteristics of the way people move. This is the way that this is what serves this. What is that? So they named it. Oh, that energy was more like a rat. By the way, rat in China was not seen as this despicable, disease-carrying, pizza-stealing animal that we have now. It was really seen as an incredible saver, somebody who can always get you ahead. They're going to win every time. So it was an honorable energy. It wasn't this nasty rodent that we associate it with. So they began to name each of the energies. So there was rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, sheep, monkey, rooster, dog, pig. And they did it in this order. And then they made up stories about it. Oh, the Buddha was dying and he called forth the animals. They did it so that it was palatable to the people so they could digest it. Because at the time, without the education, they would not have been able to understand X squared plus Y. I mean, I could barely understand that crap now, and I had it years ago. So it was these algebraic equations they could not have digested, and it was far too deep. So they began with the stories and the childlike stories, and the people began to embrace it. So that energy, when you are born and you take your first breath, either enforced by a spank on the rear or any other measure that's utilized now. That first breath is when the historian will write down your time of birth, because without that breath, it's then a stillbirth, and it's your time of death. That time of birth, recorded on the year you're born, on the month, on the day, and at that time, tells me what equation you ingested, so that I now know how your body vibrates. I know how you naturally move, how you naturally react, how you naturally respond, your natural thoughts, patterns, and behaviors that I now understand make up your epigenetics after you are infused with information from your parents, Mr. Bradshaw. Of all that information that comes in from your upraising to your education, your nutrition, your movement, all those things, along with that natural pattern, tells me how to help you navigate. And once I've taught you that energy, you can then own it. Then I can help you learn how to own your life. And so when I take that information, people say, "Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm a Scorpio devil. I don't know that stuff. I don't know it. My daughter's quite adept at it. I don't know it." And I'm not poo-pooing on any modality. I simply align with this because of this reverence that I have for the land. And I know that energy is emanating. And so we're navigating our way through it, I want to help people understand how to move with ease. My job is to help you optimize your life, not just live it. Mm-hmm. You know, my daughter said something really fascinating to me the other day. We were talking about a relationship that we knew that was, it was mediocre. It was fine. And she said, I think what happens in relationships, Mom, when they're fine and they're mediocre, people get too complacent and they don't feel a need to grow. And I said, aha. So that's why big kick in the arse is really healthy for us. And my job is to shake you a little bit to make you see these relationships you have. You dive into the relationship with your spouse, with your children, with the people that work with your boss or coworkers or employees, whatever's around you, so understanding that dynamic. So then you can say, oh, wow, that's why she gets quiet when I raise my voice. It doesn't always have to be that maybe her dad or mom was loud. It could be that energetically that kind of kicks her off her axis. And so you got to bring her back on so that she can be optimized and work with you.
Yeah. Well, and I found that when I first learned some things about the details of all this from you versus now, 5 years later, there's a big difference in the way I approach it too, obviously, because there's a practice, right? There's a steadiness to understanding the detail and exploring different things and testing things. And so feel free to use mine as an example if you'd like to, because I'm open about it. Would that make any sense to like tell people a little bit about a profile just so that they can understand how it works a little bit?
If I may, I'd like to share who David is. David, if you're game, and then I'd like to share about the two of you together and why it works. And it does work. It works very beautifully, I might add. So David, kind sir, you're born the year of the rabbit.
Yeah.
And what that tells me is that diplomacy is a strive. You would rather you don't aim to hurt people's feelings when you're speaking to them, especially on a social level. You just want things to be copacetic and let's get along. If there's too much chaos, it can be disruptive to your nervous system. You don't like it. You don't want to be in the middle of big chaotic argument. If you're at a game and some fight breaks out, you'd rather move. If people start arguing, you'd rather find an excuse to get to the car. You just want to be away from it because it doesn't settle with you very nicely. You are the month of the dragon. Now, that's a huge shift from rabbit to dragon, because people assume, oh, he's so polite. He's got that lovely accent. He's so gentle. He's such a nice cat. He's never going to be upset with me. And au contraire, because dragon energy is fascinating. Dragons are notorious for protecting their loved ones, putting them behind them and saying, I've got this. You stand back here. I've got it. You know, they're Mighty Mouse here to save the day. And it's a very chivalrous, very, very beautiful energy. But at the same time, they by God expect credit where credit is due. And if they're not given it, then they can be demanding. And it's like, no, excuse me, I'm the one who did that. Why am I being overlooked on that? And so what people will mistakenly say is, what an ego. When it's not ego, it's demanding credit where credit is due. And when not given it, that's when that gentle little pellet dropping rabbit becomes a breathing dragon.
Yeah. I'm already working on the merch here, Melissa.
Yeah. Well, just wait. It's going to get even better because there's more rabbit to come. There's more rabbit in this discussion. Yeah.
And then at your, I'm going to skip ahead to, well, let me pull back for a moment and explain what each of the energies really show us. The year you're born tells me your social energy. That can be superficial. You know, hi, how you doing? You're greeting the teller at the bank. You're just like, hi, how is it? They don't need to know, any of your woes. It's superficial, and it's your face forward. But it's the overarching energy of everything, and all the energy behind, month, day, and hour, fuel it. But it really is the first barrier, and sometimes those barriers break when the other stuff is too heavy. But that's the first impression. The month tells me how you work. If you are a stay-at-home person, it's how you run your household. If you are a student, it's how you are in class. It's how you are at your vocation. The day you're born tells me your core energy. That's who you really, really are. When push comes to shove, that's who you are. That is your non-negotiable energy. That's your spine. And it's where your morals and your values stand. As a matter of fact, when business in Asia, I would say, I am a tiger born in the year of the rabbit. So they would go, aha. So she may look sweet, but if we strike her too closely to the tail, she's got teeth. So it tells them who I am. The hour you're born tells me how you are with the energy that's closest to your heart. how the people that you love the most, I always say it's 6 inches from your heart. These people right here, those who get close enough, they experience that energy. But also, interestingly enough, it's how you handle your finances. So go figure that balance. So with you, we've got the year energy, the social energy of rabbit, which tells me
Yeah.
how you are socially. Then we got the work energy of dragon, where you would like credit where credit's due, and you are more than happy to throw as much as you can into the pot, as long as there is some parity and on understanding value.
Yeah.
The day you are is the day of dog. Now, what that tells me, the rabbit's best friend is the dog. You are the year of the rabbit, and you're the day of the dog. So if you're in Asia, you'd say, I'm a dog born the year of the rabbit. And they'd go, this guy's going to be lovely to get along with. Because you have this understanding, you have probably one of the truest understandings of who you are.
And Melissa, when you say day, are you referring to like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or the 13?
The 13th.
The 13. Yeah. Okay.
So that day tells me that you are the day of the dog. Now, what that means is that you demand loyalty because you are incredibly loyal. You are a loyal person. Sometimes you're loyal even when the other person no longer deserves it. You stay with a relationship, a job, a connection far longer than far after the expiration date. Just because you're a bit of a romantic. You remember what it was like. You remember and you believe in the good of people. And so you stay. And so, but that is nurtured by the response that you receive socially. Because the responses that you're receiving socially, which that dog is boosting, is very favorable because all that speaks, if I had to grab one word, it'd be likable. Oh, this guy's so likable. Like he's easy to get along with, he's easy to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go to the hour. You're the hour of dragon. So you're a dragon squared. So the fascinating thing about that is all that protection really manifests with people that are 6 inches from your heart. You will fight tooth and nail to make sure that those you love are taken care of and that they're okay and that they feel valued. But again, you have a demand. Like, listen, I'm here for you. Don't betray me. Don't lie to me. I'm the last person you should be lying to. And so there's a demand there. But when it comes to your money, you're very guarded. You maybe when you were younger and started making money would help friends or help family members, and then as you got older, as we all do, there's the old Winston Churchill saying that liberal in youth, conservative in age. Not necessarily politically, but you look at this and you say, okay, that's not serving me, and it's actually not serving you. I'm going to be more conservative. So you're more conservative than you may have been in your youth. Now, here's the interesting part about your income part. The dog's soulmate energy is the rabbit. The dog's enemy is the dragon. So there you are, your core values, surrounded by two dragons at the gate. And so what that tells me is that either in youth or now, probably in youth, I'm seeing, you had some issues with authority, whether it was a parent, whether it was a teacher or a coach or a boss. There's some you pushed back against a little bit of being controlled, a little bit of that, or you had a teacher, a parent, or an authority figure who did not recognize you in a way that you felt highlighted you or felt good. Someone didn't see you in a way that you needed to be seen, and so there was a little bit of that push against that. What that also tells me with your day of the dragon and your day of the dog and your hour of the dragon, is that there have been at times when your home life could have caused you some pain, where it was disruptive to your nervous system, intestines, stomach issues. So that tells me the pattern of you medically, socially, financially, connections. Fascinating thing is that the hour and the month are both dragon. So your work brings you a lot of happiness. It brings you a great deal of happiness because they're connected. It's just that day when you feel like sometimes your values have been questioned or you've been shook a little bit that's caused you some pain there. But on a social level, It's everyone wants to pet the dog with the wagging tail, and that's you.
Yeah. I think it's one of the, and I'm English, so I'm not allowed to speak well of myself, but I'm trying hard now that I'm in America. But one of the consistent pieces of feedback I have from clients is, "Oh, David, we love your energy." And I think what they mean by that is you're so like, whenever you're going to be leading a workshop, we're going to have a nice time. You're not going to just make us feel bad, or whatever. So
And I can see that in your chart. The minute I was writing out, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And then I want to tell you, Courtney is the year of the rabbit. And she is the month of the ox, the day of the monkey, and the hour of the monkey. So you're double dragon, she's double monkey. You're both the year of the rabbit. What that tells me with you both being the year of the rabbit is that there's a generational energy here of semblance. You can react to situations very similarly. You can respond to, you can notice situations very, very similarly. That's why I was laughing when you both took the cups at the same time. There is a vibrational similarity that makes it very easy. It's easy. Yep. And the reason it really is easy, it pushes all the way through with you guys, with one exception on the day of you being dog and Courtney being monkey. But your work energy of ox and monkey is there's zero conflict. I mean, I'm sorry, dragon and monkey. There's zero conflict with you guys at work. There may be a difference of opinion, but it's so minor. I mean, it's just it's nothing. It's easy. So socially, the same. Work-wise, compatible. You're dragon, she's monkey. The dragon and the monkey are good friends. So the way you relate to your families, the way you relate to finances, the way you relate to what matters most in your life, there's a support system there. There's actually a boost. It's not just compatible. There's a boost there. Like, oh, you take care of that, I got you. You take care of that, I got you. And there's no conflict. The only hiccup could be on the day for Courtney's monkey and your dog. And that is easily remedied by constantly clearing the air and saying, are you okay with that? Well, actually, no. And Courtney won't have as much of an issue of voicing what matters at the core level as you will, because you got this, say the right thing. It's the epigenetics. You just said, you're English, right? So it's got this, don't, for God's sakes, man, don't kick the pot over. There's no reason to. Whereas Courtney's like, no, she's black and white. Her energy with monkey is known as the police officer of the Zodiac, because they call it like they see it. They're not afraid to ruffle feathers, but they can recalibrate quickly. Like, okay, I didn't like that. You didn't like that about what I did? Okay, well, I won't do that. You won't do that? All right, let's go. Instead of, harboring and allowing the thorn to stay in the palm so long that it turns abscess. She believes in pulling it out and moving forward. And that serves you very well, because dogs want loyalty and they want someone to see where they stand. And the only reason you bite, if you've seen a dog and its tail's wagging, it doesn't mean you can pet it. It often, and it's confusing for people. They go, look at this nice dog, and they reach over because its tail's wagging, and then okay, well, what's wrong with you? Well, it's because you held a frustration for too long inside. Yeah. The only reason for you to snap is because you're tired, you're hungry, or you have not addressed an issue that has been festering. And the beauty of your relationship with Courtney is that she's very quick to call it out. She has no qualms about saying, no, you're off. You weren't yourself. What's going on? So she'll call it, and that allows you in a safe harbor, because I've showed you socially, career-wise, an hour. She's a safe place. The only difference is you realize through history, she's proven she's safe. You can then say, okay, this is what's going on. And she's not going to say, well, you big mamsy-pamsy, why didn't you speak up? She's not going to give you grief. She's just going to say, all right, well, let's address it. And then you guys can move forward. So it's a safe place. But how's that?
You know what's so interesting about this, Melissa, is if you put the mirror of the Enneagram with this. Yeah. David's a 7, I'm an 8, but our tri-types are both 8-7. The action is in 8, which is the active controller, fierce leader, protector. The heart center in both of us is in 2, which is aligned sometimes with the dog, and like that loyalty and that relationship and that connectedness and being close to people. And rabbit, I would say rabbit fits there.
Yeah.
And then 7 in both cases is visionary, adventure, being expansive, coming up with new ideas, but also not a whole lot of like comfort with discomfort. So, my vice as an 8 would be vulnerability, not loving to be super vulnerable, and a vice of a 7 like David would be more like not loving discomfort. So like it's very interesting because if I look at those patterns and I look at how the Enneagram lays out too, it's very symmetrical.
Oh yeah, listen, I think that lessons have been coming from all over the world, and
Yeah.
and at various times, and we always acted, the wheel was invented in my lap, right? So that's what we assume, and then we see someone else has got it, and we're like, I'll be damned, you've got 10 strokes instead of 7. You'll still work. And so it's just a matter, there are lessons of, I think that those far wiser than any of us here walking the earth like little ants have bestowed upon us these lessons like, for the love of humanity, figure yourselves out.
Yeah.
Find the vibration, find the lesson that hooks, whatever lands with you. Because, and I've traveled back to Oklahoma, what is it, this thing? I saw your Instagram, girl, and what's this stuff you're talking about? Like, it's nuts. And I think, well, why did it land with me so beautifully and resonate so easily when people with whom I grew up are just like, they're just like, they don't want to know about it. They think it's against God. They think that I'm practicing some West Coast voodoo. They don't. Oh, it's because you married a Chinaman. Okay, first of all, he's Japanese.
Let's get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second of all, thank you for reminding me why I left. And then, so there's. You wonder, why do some things land with some people, and other lessons land with them? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Are you becoming a better person as a result of? Then let's go. I don't care what it is. Are you good? Then let's go.
I feel like that. Go ahead.
I just would just like to underline that, because that's a beautiful expression there. Are you a better person than you were X period of time ago?
Right.
Because the standard conversation is, are you more successful now than you were last year? Or have you got to a different level of the corporation or whatever?
Right.
But I think there's something that Courtney and I share with you, Melissa, is that when we lay our head on our pillow at night, or when we get into that coffin at the end of this thing, do we feel like we've done a good job of being human together?
Yeah.
Because the success thing can be a big mask or diversion from that, huh?
Right.
Well, listen, success is oftentimes the Botox for the soul, and it really people like to kid themselves that they I've got the stack of cash, therefore I'm more intelligent, I'm more beautiful, I'm more. When I've taken care of these people, it's one of the reasons I walked away from what I was doing. I was walking into these homes in Bel Air, and I was greeted by a butler, and I'm walking into a really John Grisham worthy nonsense. And it's just, I was realizing, what we've always known. There's some horrible stories that are hiding behind those walls. And because they don't address, they're not owning their energy. They're owning the land, and they're fighting people who want to be a part of it. And they're fighting inheritance, and they're fighting estate claims, and they're fighting, and they're fighting, and they're fighting, and they're not at peace. And when you hear about a family member that spirals off and goes to an ashram somewhere and comes back with no shoes and longer hair, and he's happier or she's happier, they think, oh, they've lost their marbles. And they used to lock them up because they didn't fit into the wheel that kept this machine rolling forward, a la grab a name, Rothschild, Kennedy, Vanderbilt, grab a name. And it just, if that machine is disrupted by your enlightenment, then you've ruined the whole, which is kind of what we're going through right now in the world. Not to get too esoteric, but when you take a drone shot of the world right now and you see all these fires burning everywhere, there's this shaking, I think, of the spine of who the world is, and just going, what are you guys doing? And so those of us that are trying to calibrate and trying to stand still and try to widen our stance and figure out, okay, who am I? Where do I fit in this? What can I navigate? And what is designed to throw me off course?
Yeah.
A lot of it is theater, and it's designed to throw you. And that's what this That's what this misnomer of success by today's standards is. It's designed to throw you off course. There's an ad on TV, and it just grabs me. It irritates me. I have to turn it off every time I see it. And it's this commercial where there's somebody wanting to sell his car, and his wife's going, hold. And he goes, "Is now yourself hold."
Yeah.
And I watched that, and I was talking to my brother, Corey, who's deaf, and he wanted to sell my mom's car. We were talking about selling my mom's car. And he said, no. I looked up on this site, and here's the value. He goes, "We need to hold." And I said, "Okay, listen."
No.
I said, "No, that is a design for you to see that inflated number, hold, and then when they drop it precipitously, you're then going, oh my God, I've got to sell it for this lower number so it doesn't go lower." And then you end up taking far below value because you were holding. I said, don't buy into it. And he said, really? Like he was so thrown by that. But that is life. That is what we're constantly being told. One thing we're told, we as women are told you need to have a 20-inch waist and Barbie breast and, a Tina face is a Jamaican dance hall rear end. And you've got to have this perfect little, look like a 12-year-old until you're 70. And it's like, it's insanity. It's absolute insanity. And men are not far off from that push. And the whole bromance and the technocrats and this whole bromance thing that's going on around teaching our boys, and that whole toxic masculinity thing rose to the top of people trying to understand who they were. These are designed to get you off course, much like, get ready for the hate mail, much like a lot of churches are designed to get you off course. Because if you fail to recognize the energy, the God within, then you rely on other people. You rely on somebody else to teach you, guide you. I probably would have made a shitty therapist because I would have had a client for one session. I would say, I think if we fail to recognize our own energy, and with that energy, understanding who you are, and then nurturing the power of that, we each are able to navigate so much more and to propel so much faster and to make so much greater differences than we have been, because we have believed somewhere along the way our limitations. And that goes back to that epigenetics thing. If you're fed junk food your whole life, and you have a parent that berated you and another one that physically abused you, you may grow up with these limitations that you've believed, and that have fed the brain literally and fed the nervous system by way of bad food. If you were raised that way, and you never meet somebody to tell you, no, I believe in you, a teacher, a coach, a therapist, a pastor, someone who's got a good soul to say, no, I see in you something amazing. If you were never given that, then I admit that it's hard. It's hard to understand that you've got a quarter in your pocket when you don't know how to add two dimes and a nickel together. You don't understand it. You don't know what you have. You're looking at that. You're not surrounded by anyone that teaches you differently. I have a nephew that was incarcerated at one point, and I went to the prison to visit him, and I'm riding the bus to go visit him in the visitation room, and I had to get over myself, because at first I thought, I don't know what I thought was going to happen to me, but I was just almost willing my heart just to attack itself. And I got into that bus, and I went into deep meditation and just allowed myself to calm my nervous system down, my whole parasympathetic. So I got to my nephew, and he comes walking out, and I've loved this boy since he was born. I've taken care of him since he was born, and he's now a young man. And I went to see him. He's now out, but I went to see him at that time, and I was fighting back tears harder than I've ever fought back tears in my life, because I knew that wasn't going to serve him there. And I knew he couldn't see me cry, because then he might cry, and that certainly wouldn't serve him once I was gone, back in the room alone. And I sat there looking at him, and I said, "You good?" And he said, "I'm good." And we just stood there in that moment for whatever good meant. was good enough at that time. And when he got out, I was there to pick him up. Yes, he has a father and he has a mother, but his father's my brother, and he and I are very close. And he's close to his dad, but he and I are very close. So I picked him up, drove him home, and I said, tell me what you've learned. Because I'm not here to beat you up. Tell me what you've learned. And he said, believe it or not, I spoke to some old timers in there. And they said that door's going to revolve until you learn who the hell you are. And I went, what? They said, what? They told you to own your energy? And he said, well, not really, not like that. I said, yes, they did. Yes, they by God did. They told you to own your energy, or you were going to have a revolving door of manure. And I said, wow. So do I think that we can find lessons wherever we are in spite of circumstances? Yes. But the key is to hear them. So I know it's hard, and I know life can be insufferably painful. I have a client who had 4 children, and all 4 died within 2 years of each other. Car accidents and 1 by suicide. 3 by 1 car accident and 1 by suicide. And I look at her being the mother of 2, and I think, oh man, how is she putting one foot in front of the other, let alone remembering to exhale when she's inhaled? How is she doing this? But I had to get myself together to work with her on her energy and how to move through grief. Grief was just a wall. And those energies, I said, so I made her, one of the lessons was to take each of the children and they were older, they weren't babies, to write down a valuable lesson she learned from each child, that she learned, a valuable thing that each child brought to his or her position in life. And because of his or her birth, a valuable thing that happened to people around them, to her, to her husband. What happened? She and her husband divorced as a result of the insufferable grief. And we've heard of those stories before. But tell me what happened. So when she was able to shine a spotlight on the beauty of each birth and the death of her marriage, well, you had to marry him so that these 4 spirits could come, right? So that the dissolve had to happen maybe at that time, because these 4 spirits went to whatever happens next. But if we wail and self-flagellate over death, then we are holding it. We are holding the grief and the misery down. You have to go through it, but you can't hold on to it. So you have to move through it. And the way to move through it is to put air, light, and beauty into it so then it can dissipate and move to, I said, you don't have, and I told her, you don't have the right to hold your children back. You don't know what's happening next. None of us do, really. We like to think that there's some nirvana, that there's some parallel universe that's beautiful and more amazing. We like to think that, but we don't actually know. So I said, you don't have the right to hold their spirits back by rolling around on the ground. You have the right to hurt, but now we have to figure out how to move forward. And I think that's what life is. That's what life is. Take the pain, take the grief, take the thing, and then break it apart and just go, man, that really was horrible. And this is what happened. And I can talk about that because it's very easy to drop to the lowest vibration and talk crap all day. It's harder to push to that higher level and identify the beauty of it, no matter how bad it seems.
Right. So, I mean, I think the amazing thread through all of this for me, well, obviously we could sit here for another 8 or 9 hours, but there's this thread of, how can I say this right? The tools you're bringing forward, Melissa, are structure that help people understand what they already have, right?
Yes.
And I think that is really important because so many people out there, and we can call it low emotional intelligence or whatever we want to call it, or bad use of time or energy or whatever, just aren't in possession of their own autonomy and sovereignty around what belongs to them in the home of their soul, like what is already within them. And I know both David and I are always saying to clients, like, we're not really teaching you anything you don't already know. You know, it's already within you. We're just helping you bring it out. And I think that's probably similar for you to a certain degree as well. But the tools and the structure, be it Feng Shui and Chinese Zodiac and all the things you do, or Enneagram or anything else we could bring to it, are a structure and a frame and a scaffolding that I think help people hold these things and find a practice around. Because like the example of the client you just talked about, you know, we often go to despair when we don't know what to do with all this energy. So if we're trying to hold all that and like kind of bring things to a summary for today, and if you're willing, we'll absolutely have you come back again.
I would love.
We'll do it. What can we most learn from you, your family, your learning and your teaching, like your roots and your way of doing things and your way of learning? What can we most learn from that and take away from that that you think is sort of like the greatest lesson, I guess, going forward?
The key word in our family is respect. And I respect your opinions. I respect your ideas because you vibrate differently than I. Now, my husband and I are really lucky because he and I have similar energies, and our children have similar energies. So, we're looking in the mirror all the time when we're talking. So pretty much. And although there are some differences, my son is the day of ox, so he's can be a little bit stubborn, and he's also a neuroscience, graduate, and so he's analyzing, but he thrives on energy. He'll say, "What's my energy on Friday? I'd like to fly out." Like, he wants to know, so he's constantly engaging. But the thing is, no matter if his opinions are different or any of our opinions are differ, there's a level of respect. And it's not, it's very easy as a parent or as a mate to think, well, we're one. We cleaved. We're one here. We're supposed to be voting the same, thinking the same, responding the same. You're supposed to recognize everything the same way I do. And for God's sakes, I raised you. I fed you at my breast. You're supposed to parrot everything I say. And so our egos get involved. And ego has to be shoved out of the room. Respect is key. So the number one thing I would say is in work relationships, business relationships, day-to-day relationships, when I see someone racing down the road, don't automatically assume that it's someone that deserves my road rage, but assume that, just say, I don't know, maybe got a call that his mother fell. I don't know. Just don't assume the worst. We assume the worst, and you assume the worst because you don't have respect. You don't have self-respect. And if I respect me and I respect who I am so much, it's so easy for me to respect the two of you because I see your light. Each of us have a capsule, I imagine probably around this big, that resides right here in the breastplate, and that's the soul, and it lights. And your job is to constantly see it and recognize it. We are recognizable spirits navigating, but when we put the blinders on and we don't have respect, we don't see the other person at all. So I think the key thing really is respect. I respect my children. I respect my husband. I respect the two of you. I respect people in my world. Even if I wildly disagree, I respect their right to believe that way and to move that way.
We need a lot more people to embrace that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful said.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Melissa, thank you. One thing I just want to say at the end of this is thank goodness for our grandparents. Huh? Wasn't your grandmother who said, follow your gift? And here we are, an hour later, we're hearing why that matters. Yeah, and
That's
so
right.
one of the things I'd just like to offer listeners to this is, as well as listening to this and thinking about all of the wonderful stuff we've been talking about over this last hour, just think back, did your grandparents give you some advice, and is it maybe time to follow that?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, and we never know, one little seed planted, even at a young, nubile age of 2 or 3, germinated, and I grabbed it. And so we never know what seeds we're planting with people, even if it's a 90-year-old who takes up, swimming to stay healthy, whatever it is. We never know. Our words of kindness and support and encouragement are more magical. Forget Jack and the Beanstalk and those beans. We got these beans you're throwing out with words are really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you both for having me.
Well, it won't be the last time. We'll see you again soon.
I hope not.
Absolutely not. Thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you, everybody, and we will see you next time.